welcome to our very first episode of Neuro Nomads.
Yes.
Expat moms parenting neurodiverse children. And we're so excited to start this podcast. We've been thinking about it for quite a long time. And it was a little baby dream that was birthed back when we both lived in the UK and didn't know if it would ever happen because we were living side-by-side neighbors. That's how we met. We'll get into that story later. But we had an idea to do this podcast, and then we both moved across the world. I moved to the US, Florida, and Dallia moved to Abu Dhabi, which she'll tell you more about. And now we're visiting each other. We get to be together. So we get to start this podcast together side by side. Yeah. But in the future, when you see us, we'll be in our separate, across the world from each other. So our vision in this podcast is to build a tribe of other neurodiverse parents who are expats and want to learn from our mistakes, our triumphs, and get some wisdom from all the years that we have gleaned raising these children as expat moms. And we'll get into our stories of how long we've been expats and how many children we have in a minute. Yes. What's your vision for this podcast?
So my vision for this podcast is the more people that I talk about, as you'll get to know, I talk very openly and honestly to my children and about my children and about us being a neurodiverse family. Yes. And I meet new people as an expat and I say, oh, hi, I'm Dallia and my kids are neurodiverse and I struggle with this and this and this. And I'm open with it up front. And then I often hear people saying, oh, my child also has neurodiversity, also has ADHD, also autism or something like that. So I think I want to dispel a lot of the kind of the shame that comes around with it. So the more we talk about it, the more we build our tribe, the more of the expat parents with neurodiverse children feel like they're not alone. Mm-hmm. So we want you to feel like you're not alone. We want to feel not alone. And that was a big bond in our friendship when we met each other, where that our kids were not neurotypical. And so it wasn't kids making friends like normal. And so that really bonded us. And then we went through struggles and triumphs together. And we want to take this to our tribe of expats, mothers and fathers who are raising untypical, neurodiverse children and the whole spectrum and all those things that entail and all our extra complexities because we're expats as well as parents of neurodiverse children. And in many, many instances, neurodiverse ourselves. How do we navigate the expat life while being neurodiverse ourselves or raising neurodiverse children? And so we found an absolute gap in the space. There's lots of podcasts and information about being neurodiverse. There's a lot of podcasts and information about being expats. Yes. But there's nothing out there to help us who are expat and neurodiverse. So that's my vision for this podcast, is that we find our tribe and we help each other navigate this unique niche of being an expat and being in the neurodiverse world.
Yeah, and I think that's such a good point, Dallia. For me, I disqualified myself from being expat. When we were offered an expat job, I kind of thought, oh no, like with my children having neurodiversities, like how is that going to work for them? I don't think I can do that. And so we want to empower you guys too, even if you're not an expat yet, but it's something you're thinking about doing. This is how we've navigated it, and this is what we've done to allow us to be able to be world globe trotters with our families, despite some of the challenges that come up. So so Dallia is going to go first. So this is Dallia. I don't know if we said that. We do not know how to do this. Just FYI, this is our very first go at doing anything on social media like this. So please just come along the journey with us. Know that we are far from perfect, but we hope that you could just even take away one little tidbit would be, amazing from this. So Dallia's going to go first. She's going to share a little bit about herself, her life, her family, and her experience.
Okay, so my name is Dallia. I grew up in South Africa, and when I was 19, my boyfriend and I at the time, who's now my husband, and we've been together 28 years, we decided to go traveling around the world. So we ended up backpacking and ended up in England for 4 years, and then we moved to Australia, and we were like, okay, we're settling down now, and we'll settle down and have kids and find a job and etc., etc. And then my husband ended up finding a job that then made us into expats, serial expats. So we now live in Abu Dhabi, which is country number 9. But we have lived in 3 countries twice, so we've moved internationally 12 times. Started off with just the 2 of us in a backpack, and we ended up with 3 children and a dog, and a big house, lots of furniture and things like that. And I remember when we started backpacking, and there's so much things to buy when you're traveling. And I remember saying to my husband Wayne, where do people buy all these things? Where do they put it? Because we didn't have a home. We were kind of nomads, which we still are. And but now we have a home with all the things that we bought around the world. So that was our expat journey. And my children were born while we were being expats, so they know nothing different. I'm not sure if I would have started the expat journey if I had neurodiverse children, and I would have been too fearful about it. But because our children were born while we were overseas and in all the different countries, you just roll with it before you even know that you have neurodiverse children. So that's what this is all about. This is all about, what do we do? How do we choose schools? How do we advocate for our children in the schools and things like that? So
Wonderful.
That's my story.
So how many children do you have?
Oh, yes, of course. I have 3 children, 3 boys. I have an 18-year-old, a 16-year-old, and about to be 10-year-old tomorrow. And so they all have varying degrees of neurodiversity, and which we'll get into in later podcasts, exactly, how more severe their needs are and things like that. But so it's been a very interesting 3-boy journey of living in different countries. We've lived in Japan, we've lived in Fiji, we've lived in Serbia, Ukraine, we've lived in France, we've lived in England, lived in South Africa, and now in Abu Dhabi, which we are Australia.
Yeah,
of course, we're all Australian citizens.
I know more than she.
Yeah. 2 of my boys were born in Australia.
That's right.
And one was born in Japan. And so that's how we've come to being here. We're now in Abu Dhabi. Hopefully, we said this with our last move. We said England was our last move. But now, hopefully, Abu Dhabi is our last move, and we'll make this our base for the foreseeable future.
Yeah. Awesome. She's got the best, most exciting story, more excited than mine. Hi, my name is Krista. I have 5 children, 4 boys and a girl, and my husband is Air Force, and so we have traveled throughout Canada, which is where I'm originally from, with his work, from coast to coast, province to province, and then we lived in the UK, and now we live in the USA, Florida. So I started my expat journey with children, and as I moved along, some of the neurodiverseness of my children, the spiciness was coming out, and it was very uncomfortable at first, and then we learned to navigate it and set up different schools for them, what their needs were, and figure out what resources we can get in place for them to make those moves and transitions successful, and to teach them about the world that we live in, the great big world that we live in, take the opportunity to travel. So that is my story. I am an adoptive mom as well. So my kids come from a wide range of Asperger's, ADHD. There's some trauma-based tendencies as well that we've had to navigate through. But I guess that's about it for me. Now I'm in Florida, and I have plans to one day reunite with my bestie here in Abu Dhabi, but we'll see how that goes.
Putting it out there in the universe.
Putting it out there in the universe. That's right. So that's about it. This is what our podcast is going to be about. I hope that you guys find our stories and our victories inspiring and empowering. So in conclusion, I guess we just want to say that some of the topics that we're going to be covering I guess first of all, we want to hear from you guys.
Mm-hmm.
We have a platform. We have a Facebook account. It's called Neuronomads, and we have a TikTok and an Instagram. And we want to hear your comments. And on Facebook, we'll have this video up if you're watching it on Facebook. And if there's some topics that you guys are interested in, you want to hear about, let us know, because we will happily cover those topics. Yeah. We're going to be interviewing some professionals. We've met a lot of expat professionals along the journey, OTs, speech and language therapists who have neurodiverse children and are expats themselves. I have one thing I didn't say about myself is that, and you didn't share this about you, I come from a background of nursing. I was a nurse for 17 years. I haven't been practicing nursing since COVID, but I've done mental health, addictions, surgical. I've worked all over the mental health field and medical field with nursing. And I've brought that into my parenting, and I have a lot of wisdom to share with you around that. And likewise, Dallia has been a health and nutrition coach for many years as well, and owned businesses and...
Yes, so that's what helped me move around the world in my career, as being in the health and wellness and beauty space. I like to do alternative massage and helping people with their stress release and general wellness and nutrition coaching. So, and I particularly focus on older women going through menopause, and how we can keep ourselves healthy. And a lot of that is self-care, massage, meditation, relaxation, and things like that. So, and which I think is vitally important when you're a parent of neurodiverse children, because you become the full-time carer, and you need to fill your cup first, or otherwise you're not going to be able to be there for your kids and for your family. And, normally as expats, especially us, there's many names for us: trailing spouses, expat wives, things like that. Your husband normally has the job that takes you to the country, which is normally their job is to go to work and do that. Your job is everything else. Your job as an expat wife is to set up the home, to make the friends, find the doctors, do all those things, and deal with the schools, and that's a big thing. And so your mental load is extra when you're an expat, and then on top of that, having the neurodiverse aspect of it just puts you like right at the top of the stress levels in normal life. So, and to add the complexities of this expat life that we live in really, really tax on that load, which is why it's so important that we find this community and help each other. What we didn't mention was also how we met.
I was skipped to the conclusion. I was like, it seems too early to have a conclusion, but I'm trying to follow me. We should share how we met. We should.
Well, you want to tell your version?
No, your version's way funnier. You tell. She tells us so much funnier.
Because my sons are neurodiverse, my middle one is autistic and my youngest one is autistic as well. And my middle one is savant-like. He's no problems academically, which we can do a whole topic on, of how, because he's so academically smart, his extra needs of social anxiety and executive functioning struggles are totally ignored by the school because he's doing so well academically. So I'm constantly fighting with schools to recognize that he has struggles and to how they should speak to him, because otherwise we have weeks of anxiety and breakdowns because of some stupid email that a teacher sent. So, but that's a whole episode. So anyway, so he comes home to me and he goes, "Oh, Mommy, I met a friend." And this is about April, May. "Oh, Mommy, I've met a friend and his birthday is in September and he's invited me to his birthday." So I said, "Well, why don't you find out where he lives? Let's make arrangements now. We've got like 6 months towards his birthday." He's like, "Oh, okay. I'll ask where he's from." And so it turns out he lived in the same neighborhood. And then he comes and goes, "Oh, he lives in Rickmansworth, which is the neighborhood we used to live in." And I was like, "Oh, where?" And then it turns out he's like, "Oh, they have a pool." So I'm like, I had seen, excuse me, on the rental agency website that there was a house for rent nearby us with a swimming pool. So I knew kind of 99% that was the house they lived in.
Yeah.
But then he came back with the name of the house in the street, and I was like, okay. So he came home from school. In the car, he said, let's go over. So I dropped the other kids at home. We drive the one door down. I come barreling down her driveway in my big 4-wheel drive, and we jump out of the car and we knock on the door, and Krista opens the door. And
I was in my pajamas, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Well, because we had just come out of, I think, our second COVID lockdown in the UK.
Yeah.
And I was like not handling life well. I was coping, but
And so we like knock on the door,
we all were.
And her kids weren't home from the bus yet.
Yeah.
Because I used to pick up my kids from school, and so we got home quicker. And so she's like, and we're like, "Oh, is Noah here?" And I was there with my big hair and my big eyelashes and my big car. Yeah. I'm very big. And we were like, "Oh, hi, this is Dan. I'm Daniel's mom. He's friends with your son."
Yeah.
And then we, I think that was a bit overwhelming for you.
I felt nervous because of how I was feeling internally. But no, you weren't overwhelming for me. I just think I was like, I didn't know how to take it. So that's all. But I had just gone from a very quiet season during COVID. I mean, we moved right in the middle of COVID, so I had not really been socializing at all. Like back in Canada, I always had people over, and we were very social as a family. But then we had gone through like a couple months of like not seeing anyone. So just to see you like coming in there and be like, "I think we need to be friends," and I was like, "Okay, sure." But I think after you left, I went into Mark and I said, "I'm going to make sure that she's my friend." And I like set it in my mind. I'm like, I'm going to go over there. And like, it was like, that was a done deal for me. And I was like, I'm going to be friends with this lady. But I was intimidated. Yes. Okay. Yes. I was intimidated by you. I was. And I'm a pretty big, I'm not, I'm totally out there, but I'm a big personality myself. Yeah. And yes. Yeah. It was amazing. It was such a blessing for me because I was so lonely and I was like, I'm never going to make friends here. Because I just get like that when, every time you first move to a new country, you kind of like go into this okay, now I need to hunt out my people, and it can feel a little bit disheartening if it doesn't happen right away. But yes. It wasn't that long until we met from that move. So
yeah.
And then you were already quite well established in the community. So Dallia was so lovely. She brought me into the women's group and introduced me to a lot of people, which was such an amazing help to me. Yes. So thank you for that. Actually, I think I thanked you before, but.
They talk in expat circles that you see a newbie and you claim them, and you think, "Oh, I'm going to be her friend."
Yeah.
And I think our connection was so instant.
Yeah.
I think we had coffee or wine, maybe once or twice, and then we were inseparable. Yeah. And then ever since then, everybody knew. Whatever event it was, if one of us was there, both of us was there. Yeah. And if one of us couldn't make, neither of us.
Where's your?
So that's another complexity of being an expat.
Yeah.
And meeting people that you click with.
Yeah.
I would say out of the 9 countries that I've lived in, it's happened to me maybe 3 times where I've met somebody that we've just connected on a soul level.
Yeah.
And you don't have to be, when you go to a new country, you have to be your best self and pretend to be normal and
pretend that your children are
normal. And I think very straight away with us, we could just be ourselves. And I think it's quite rare, but it does happen.
Yeah.
And that's why now that we live oceans apart, we still talk very regularly.
Yeah.
And we've decided to do this podcast so that we can invite more people into our little group of being real, talking about the struggles of being an expat with neurodiverse children. And learning from each other and helping each other and knowing that we are not alone. You are not alone.
Yes.
And this is the basis of us wanting to do this. We want to help people, how we've helped each other cope with the really tough stuff and celebrate the amazing stuff. When you have a kid, my 18-year-old, when he's ADHD, and when he was 6, he was struggling to learn to read. And, you think the school makes out like it's a parenting problem.
Yes.
Or this problem, or, a discipline problem, or this, or your child's this, or your child's that. And, he was my first. And that was affronting to me, like I was in tears all the time. And but then when my third one was getting diagnosed with autism, I was like, oh, it'll be all right. I approached it with much more kindness to ourselves. It wasn't my fault. It wasn't something I had done. I'm doing the best I can, and it's a nervous system disability and these panic attacks and things like that. And so I'm so much kinder to myself once we got diagnosis, and the importance of getting a diagnosis and learning that there's nothing you could do to have changed that, and the things that now that you can do stuff to help them and help them become successful adults, and changing your expectations. And these are all things we'll discuss in further episodes. And that's why we want to know what you, as the listener, as part of our tribe, what your experiences have been. And by all means, tell us if you want to join us on the podcast and tell us your story, and then we can discuss different aspects of the journey of being an expat, being part of the neurodiverse world, whether it's being neurodiverse yourself and parenting neurodiverse children, or being a neurotypical parent of neurodiverse children, and trying to navigate how you help your children when you don't understand what it's like to be them. And I would love to. We're going to try and convince our kids to come on the podcast and give us a little bit of insight about what it's like to actually be the child with autism and neurodiversity as an expat kid. And we would like to bring that all together with some resources, like what books to read, what things to listen to, and stuff like that. And if I can...
Things that have helped us.
And if I can give...
treasures that we've found along the way.
Exactly. And if I can give, for this episode, one book recommendation and one just general tip.
Okay.
And I've found in my journey a very good book to start with is called Untypical. I should have read the...
We'll put the link in.
We'll put the link in of the author. Yeah. It's of a autistic adult male. So he tells you what it's like to go to school, to go to university, he was a teacher. What it's like to be in a job, to be at school, to be at university as an autistic adult, as an autistic person. And he only got diagnosed, I think, in his 30s or late 20s. So he struggles without a diagnosis. And it gives you a great understanding of what it's like to be your child if you are raising a neurodiverse child. And my second tip would be, my best information I've got is from autistic adults. So if you can find Facebook groups or things that are run by autistic adults and hear their voices and listen to them, and that will help you understand how to understand your kids
Yes.
and parent your kids with empathy of how they are feeling.
Yeah.
And it's very hard because most of the books about autism, about ADHD, about all the things that are involved on the spectrum and all the comorbidities, experts that have studied it but are not autistic themselves. So they have no understanding of what it's like to be an autistic individual. And I think that's my biggest learning has come from listening to autistic adults.
Wonderful. Thank you, Dallia. Some of the topics we're going to be covering are how to advocate for your child at school, how to pick up a school, how to have those discussions early on when you're going in and interviewing the school. Remember that you're interviewing the school. They're not interviewing you. How to recognize anxiety in neurodiverse children. That can be quite challenging. We're going to look at PDA. What is PDA? How does it present in our children? Some tips and tricks to handle that.
Diagnosis.
Diagnosis. How to go about diagnosis. Is it worth it to pay for private versus waiting for the government? What different countries do and how that looks, and our experience with that. How to manage food in different countries.
That's a big one with
That's a very
autistic
big
children
one.
because
Yes.
they're so particular about what they eat, and it always is an adjustment period when you move to a new country about your kids getting used to the food there.
Yeah.
We've been here 6 months, and my middle one is still struggling to find food, his safe foods here that in England we could get readily available. Yeah. So that's a really good topic.
So I hope that you'll tune in for our next episodes. As you tune into a bit of our crazy and maybe learn a little bit, laugh a bit, cry a bit, and
because we laugh a lot together.
We do laugh a lot together. We have to. You have to because
otherwise you cry.
Otherwise you just go crazy. So. All right.
So thank you so much for listening, and welcome to our journey. And we're hoping to find our tribe and really create a movement and a community of us expat parents of neurodiverse children and help each other along the way. Yeah,
so please like, follow, sign up for when our releases will be coming out. We're hoping to release 2 podcasts or 2 episodes a month, but we'll see how it goes. Yes. All right. Bye for now.
Bye.